Welcome to Gillette Stadium, everybody. My name is Mike Petraglia, joined as always by Patriots expert writer for WEEI.com, Christopher Price. Okay, Chris, the first 2 days of the NFL draft are in the books for the Patriots. They make two selections, and they make a trade out of the third round with the Jacksonville Jaguars. They do what they have done so many times in the past. They add value picks, one in the fourth round, one in the sixth round. But let's recap first of all. Day number one, Dominique Easley. He is a nose tackle out of a university that Bill Belichick knows oh so well, the University of Florida. What can you tell us about Dominique Easley, and is there a chance that potentially he would make some type of impact in 2014?
I think Dominique Easley was a pick made with an eye toward 2015-2016. That's not to say he's not going to have any sort of impact in 2014, but when you look at the current makeup of the New England defense up front, you're looking at Tommy Kelly, you're looking at Vince Wilfork, you're looking at Chandler Jones, Rob Ninkovich, and the rest. He's a guy who is essentially going to take a redshirt year here in New England while he gets up to speed. There's some questions about the health of the knees, whether or not he'll be able to hold up over the course of a full 16-game season. That's not to say he's going to be inactive for all 16 games, but when you look at the current makeup of this team, the current makeup of the roster, if he's playing more than 60% of the snaps, I think you have a problem up front, because that means that Vince Wilfork goes down or Tommy Kelly goes down. The perfect scenario for Dominique Easley is he keeps his eyes and ears open and his mouth shut in 2014 and follows around Vince Wilfork. I wrote that essentially he needs to take a post-grad year at Vince Wilfork University. He's a guy who can play multiple spots up and down the defensive line, but this is not his year. Ultimately, he's going to have an impact, but it's going to be in 2015, 2016, and beyond.
All right, Chris, let me play devil's advocate, as a lot of fans out there are going to do with this pick. That is a first-round pick. Now, the last couple of years, the Patriots have had a lot of production out of their their first-round pick, most notably, I would say, Chandler Jones. And Chandler is somebody who has been able to come in here and be effective on the edge. I mean, in his first 6 games of his rookie season, I believe it was, he had 6 sacks, and he was getting a lot of pressure on the quarterback. And Patriot fans are going, well, wait a minute. You just spent a first-round pick on a guy who's getting over 2 ACL surgeries, but you are confident that he can be some type of productive player for you. Why would that not be next year?
I think specifically as it relates to Chandler, Chandler was stepping in for guys like Andre Carter, who was at the tail end of his career, or is at the tail end of his career, and Mark Anderson, who is no longer here. He left as a free agent, so he was able to really step in, and he didn't play. He played a lot, but he wasn't an overwhelming presence over the course of his entire rookie season. I think when you look at a guy like Easley, Easley's a guy who can be brought in and brought in very kind of gradually over the course of the process. This is not a specific area of need as it relates to the 2014 season for the Patriots, so they can afford to break him in easily. Again, we're not saying that he's not going to have an impact, but you're looking at a guy in Easley who was drafted for 2015, 2016 and beyond when Vince Wilfork leaves, when Tommy Kelly leaves. He's going to be the guy. Every time they've made that move for a defensive lineman in the first round, though, they've managed to knock it out of the park, whether it's Vince Wilfork, whether it's Richard Seymour, whether it's Ty Warren. Easley is a guy who I think eventually could be that guy. I'm not looking for him to be that guy in 2014, but he could be that guy 2015, 16, and beyond.
I fear I've buried the lead a little bit, because the other pick that the Patriots have made in the first 2 days is really the pick I think a lot of people are going to be talking about. And actually, Jimmy Garoppolo, the quarterback out of Eastern Illinois. He broke all of Tony Romo's records at Eastern Illinois. And of course, the cynics out there are going to be, wait a minute, the Patriots just selected a quarterback from the same school that Tony Romo went to, and we all know the kind of record that Tony Romo has had in the pros. A lot of numbers, but not a lot of success come playoff time. And I think, on a serious note, though, Jimmy Garoppolo, we heard him on the conference call. He's very thrilled to be playing with his idol, Tom Brady. But I think what you wrote about on WEEI.com is fascinating about who is teaching Jimmy Garoppolo and what can we really learn about what this kid might be doing for the Patriots down the road.
Jimmy Garoppolo has been working with a quarterback guru ever since he was in high school. Now that kind of, there's some similar earmarks here when you're talking about a career arc to Tom Brady. Tom Brady really learned at the foot of Tom Martinez, really became who he was. You can't tell Tom Brady's story without telling the story of Tom Martinez.
Right.
Now, what Jimmy was able to do over the course of his career, he was able to get with a quarterbacking guru who was able to go over the same level of instruction that Brady enjoyed with Martinez. I'm not suggesting that ultimately Garoppolo is going to turn out to be the same guy, but in terms of the career arc, in terms of the footwork, in terms of the technique, in terms of the style, in terms of the overall approach to the quarterback position, it's an exact carbon copy. Basically, it's point for point in terms of the overall teaching approach that Brady enjoyed and the overall teaching approach that Garoppolo has enjoyed over the course of his career to this point.
All right, what about Jimmy Garoppolo, the mental toughness issue? I asked Belichick how you gauge whether or not Jimmy Garoppolo can really handle the rigors of the NFL, and his answer essentially is, we all know when we're making this pick, it's a different competition level. The thing we have to find out when he gets here is how does he assimilate all of the information at a much different competitive level.
I think it's going to be a challenge because, and I was just talking about this with someone upstairs, we looked at Matt Castle in 2008 during the preseason, and we said this was not a guy who was NFL ready. Matter of fact, a lot of us thought he was going to be cut that summer. He goes out, Tom Brady goes down, and while Matt Castle doesn't set the world on fire, Matt Castle proves himself to be a capable NFL quarterback. The bigger point to all this is you don't really know what you have until you see a guy take significant snaps. You don't know what they have here in Ryan Mallett after, what, 2-3 years now.
3 years, right.
You know, in a guy going into the final year of his contract, it looks like right now, if you had to kind of ballpark it, you're looking at a situation where both Ryan Mallett and Jimmy Garoppolo are going to fight for snaps to be the number 2 guy, not unlike the way that Ryan Mallett and Brian Hoyer did it back in 2011. So, but I guess basically my bigger point here when you're talking about Jimmy Garoppolo and whether or not that's going to translate, that skill set's going to translate to the NFL level, we don't know until he starts to take significant snaps. It's not just training camp, it's not just preseason, it's the regular season, and we don't know how he's going to do until that really happens.
And Jimmy Garoppolo, it will be an interesting story to study in training camp as everybody naturally wonders, is he going to be Tom Brady's heir apparent? And Bill Belichick, I thought it was significant early on in his comments to us Friday night here at Gillette Stadium, said, yeah, we did make this move with an eye towards the future, but then asked whether or not that means could he be Tom Brady's replacement in season or Tom Brady's replacement after he retires. The answer was a little bit more vague. How did you read Belichick's answer to whether or not this is the quarterback of the future for the New England Patriots?
The biggest takeaway for me as it relates to that was the fact that Belichick said it's better to be too early than too late in a situation like this. And I think that's the key thing when you're talking about his comments as they relate to Jimmy Garoppolo tonight. Clearly he was their guy. He came in here for a visit. They liked him. Garoppolo talked about it. Belichick talked about it. And they decided on him as opposed to a Teddy Bridgewater type, a Johnny Manziel type, a Derek Carr.
Rumor was, by the way, not to interrupt, but they would have taken Blake Bortles.
Exactly. Bortles is another guy. And there are a lot of other guys who are still on the board. I know a lot of folks thought that A.J. McCarron would be a good fit here in New England. Zach Mettenberger, Aaron Murray. There's a lot of guys who are still out there. I think ultimately the bottom line is Patriots always take a quarterback. And I think that it's just a matter of when. I think we were a little bit surprised, and I think a lot of people are still going to be surprised, the fact that they used a 62nd overall pick on him. The Patriots have never used that high a pick on a quarterback. It's going to be interesting to watch his development since Drew Bledsoe back in 1993.
Correct.
And shortly after the earth cooled. So that was a long, long time ago. But I think it's going to be interesting to see when he gets in here, how fast he gets up to speed, and again, ultimately, this is shaping up to be a really interesting positional battle here as we sit here in May. Real interesting positional battle between Ryan Mallett and Jimmy Garoppolo for backup quarterback.